mic picking up? Okay, so thank you, Pam, for the introduction and for the opportunity to spend time with you all this weekend and to share with you all what we have been doing since January of 19. This is my first in-person NASCA conference. I've been doing some of the digital things, and of course, getting to work alongside Commissioner Branscombe, I hear about, in fact, several of you I've told, I've heard about you, but I haven't met you yet, and I'm so excited to meet you all. And so this is a great opportunity, and I look forward to continuing the networking during the next couple of days. Yesterday, we had that bucket list question that we started with, and I shared something with you all that for my bucket list is a part of one of the things I really talk about a lot for me personally. There's 3. And at any point in the weekend, you can, without a doubt, if you're having a hard time talking, you can come and talk to me about these 3 things: faith, family, and football. Okay? It is college football day. It is game day. And I want to start by sharing something. Now, I can really geek out about football too, okay? So I read all those preseason, the stuff. It used to all be magazines. And yes, I'm still old school, and so I have torn out from a magazine what I'm getting ready to share with you. But now you also have all this digital stuff, and you have apps, and you can watch. I mean, while I'm getting ready in the morning, I can watch what I need to do with my fantasy team, So, but today is game day in college sports, and I love the stories behind the team. So I do read a lot about it. And I am going to tell you a little bit, I'm going to open a little bit with reading something that was in one of those preseason publications, but I have removed all names. So, because I don't want you to get hung up on that team or that coach or that player. I want you to hear their voice. Because this article, it actually speaks, and it speaks to us from the perspective of the coach, the perspective of the organization, and the perspective of the players in that organization. So, and I literally, I can't show you this because then you'll know what team it is. So it's literally pulled out of a magazine, and I'm just going to read a couple of places. So, he asked players during a team meeting, what were their major concerns? What did they need? What did they want? How could he help in the transition to make them feel comfortable and wanted? He listened and he reacted. He demanded effort in practice, but he also sought ways to put the fun back in football. He often was heard saying, players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. This coach cared, and the players responded. In his first season, actually before the season even began, he knew that this organization needed a culture change. And rather than a kick in the butt, coach gave the players a pat on the back. And it worked. Because in that first season, suddenly players enjoyed going to practice, watching boatloads of football film, hanging out in the athletic complex and visiting with coaches in their office. One of the players said, the guys are just really wanting to be here, wanting to compete, wanting to get better together. Y'all, this is their voice. We're talking organizational excellence. But listen, a coach that worked with this coach said the culture definitely needed a change. And this coach is such a great coach. He was leading us in the right direction through that change. People, players, coaches, school administrators would quote his slogan for his first season: one team, one heartbeat. Everybody, another player said in this article, everybody loves to be here. It's a brotherhood here. There's a lot of love in this building. The coach's ability to connect with the player helped facilitate, in his first season, a high-octane offense. It excited the players and it baffled the defenses. The fact that he played at the highest level gave this coach some credibility. He had won a national championship. He had been a runner-up for a Heisman. It gave credibility among the players because they felt like he understood what they were going through to push themselves to be better. And he created a culture that wanted to breed success and that wanted to push each other to be the best. I literally took the 2-page article and all I did was underline pieces, the different voices that we heard about the change that came about in that first season. And again, this came out last month before we had our opening game weekend in college football, which actually now turns into like an opening game 4 or 5 days. But that, you would have thought we were reading something about best practices within an organization, right? But we were reading about what was live and real for a team and the dynamic change that they went through in their first season. So you want to be a part of the second season.
So when do we get to guess who it is?
Okay, who do you think it is?
It's Josh Heupel.
Yes! Oh! Yes, it is, and they're going to be playing this afternoon. Well, hey, I would not have said that about the last coach, and there wouldn't have been an article about that. But SEC football, well, we don't have time to talk football this morning, but we can talk later today. But you're exactly right. That's who I was talking about. So change, it happens all of the time, whether we choose it or, as some of you all were saying yesterday, and I've changed some of my speech, my presentation today, because I wanted to react to the voices in this room. And some of you all were talking about the unknown, the uncertainty, because sometimes change chooses us. But it's going to happen, whether we choose it or it chooses us. And so we often, as leaders, we figure out, okay, what do we need to do? So my 3 points, as we talked yesterday, there's often multiple points, and inspiring, aligning, and activating. And there's a lot of pieces that go in, hey Clifton, that go in to what does inspiring mean? And so we heard in that football story, the article I just told, that you can tell the players, they said they wanted to be around each other. They were being pushed in practice. They even liked watching boatloads of film together because it was different. There was something about that leadership that was inspiring. So that's where we're going to talk. We're going to start talking about, okay, if we're looking at some sort of organizational redesign or organizational change, we can call it the redesign, but what we're really talking about is change, right? Yes, it is. It's these things that I have up on the slide. But it's really about wanting to better integrate resources, processes, and people. And what we have to remember is this last point. People will be how the change happens. That's who makes the change. And so a successful redesign really looks like a team that has a clear vision and a roadmap for the organization's future. And it's understood at every level of the organization. So in that, going back to that football story that I started with, every level of the organization, everyone's talking about it. It's written up now. You have fans quoting. You have administrators using the coach's slogan. You have fellow coaches. You have players. Everyone is realizing that they can be a part of the redesign. I told our friends from Deloitte that, okay, you don't know this, but I'm going to quote some of your recent reports. So right here, I'm quoting them, the 2021 Global Survey. So it reported that 80% of their respondents indicated that they are either restructuring their organization or they've recently completed. Now, what's interesting is in that same report, it digs down in and it says only 7% of the respondents didn't say anything about reorganization at any level, but 80%. Wow. So people are going to make this difference. And so what we have to say, okay, so when do we think redesign is needed? Okay, well, yesterday, lots of examples were being given. And in addition to being a college football fan, you know, I can read some other stuff too. And so, and I went to business school, we're not gonna say how long ago, but one of the people I'm still reading after that many years is John Maxwell. And he says that change is inevitable, but growth is optional. So when is redesign needed? Well, there's usually some things that tell us that we realize within an organization when it's needed. But really what it comes down to, and I have some of those things listed, but what it comes down to, and let's just face it, that when leaders fail to deliver the results that they've promised, that they're being held accountable to, those leaders tend to turn to redesign. It's really all about the results that we know here in the room that we are expected to produce. So, and what can happen is if redesign is not carefully planned, or is not correctly rolled out, then that everything that's put in to that organizational redesign, what happens? Well, there's often, and especially in the public sector, we get told often, well, this is a waste of money. But you know what? And someone in the room yesterday was talking about burnout. It's a waste of time and energy too, if it's not correctly rolled out or planned. But then the people in the organization that we know make the change happen, what happens to them? They start doubting leadership. They're afraid it's another flavor of the month. Someone said that yesterday, right? What is this? This is just what the new folks think that we need to do, okay? So, but what we need to do as leaders that knows there needs to be some sort of change, we need to spend some time identifying the negative mindsets. Because remember, with people, we're talking about what people are feeling, what people are thinking, how they're behaving. Well, often, in order to seek change in people, we have to get them thinking about the organization differently. We've got to change that mindset. So I want to share with you some exact words from people in the Department of General Services. When Commissioner Branscombe and I were appointed in January 2019, we went in knowing that there needed to be some changes and some things, we needed some different results. And that, yeah, redesign was on the horizon, and many of the reasons I had on the prior slide, multiple ones, were the reason for that need of redesign. But one of the things we did is we started with the people. And what I've put up on this slide are exact quotes from what the people in the organization said in 2019 versus in 2022, just to give you an idea. And so that you know, what they were responding to is they were responding to this question: what is happening in TNDGS that senior managers do not understand? Well, right there. They said they don't understand us. They don't understand how valuable we are. Fear-based leadership, and someone said that yesterday, is not motivating. Okay? Now, that same question, what is happening in TNDGS that senior managers do not understand? A few years later, they have told us, well, they're keeping us in the conversation. They ask questions of frontline employees. During huddles, senior management, and you can read that, but that last one, that was written by someone within the organization, and they have started using our terminology. The Department of General Services didn't even know what a huddle was before 2019, other than on a football field. And yes, I've taken my whole love for football into the organizational development, and if you want to see my slides on the game plan, I've got it. But we now have huddles, okay? Senior management seems to be on the same page. They have confidence in us, okay? And what? They're saying that they actually know the goals. They know the plans. They even know the status of the goals. And that's because when we do our huddles, we update them. We actually, and I was telling some folks, we actually have a scoreboard for each one. Our department, we have 4 goals. Everyone in the department has the same 4 goals. They are everything from our 4-year, the same 4 goals, our 4-year strategic plan, our divisional operational plans, all the way into our individual performance plans, okay? Well, when they go to their quarterly huddle, which is within, we have 5 divisions of operation within the department. Each division of operation has a quarterly huddle. They see their scoreboard. They see where they are in what, because every operation needs to measure what matters most to them, right? In order to achieve the efficiency or the experience with our customers or and so forth. So they're even using our terminology. I'm going to share another, well, just also to tell you a little bit about this. So Clued In Leaders is one of 15 culture drivers. So we use a third-party company. It's a national company that does this sort of thing. And so this survey that our employees responded to in the first year, we're still working with that company. And so they have, these culture drivers are the same, except for, I will say, when we started in 2019, there were 14. We've added 1. and that is because of the importance to foster a culture of belonging within an organization. So we've added a 15th culture driver in the last few years. They are the same. So we have benchmark data, but what is really, really cool is that we are seeing the growth, and we can get into the analytics and look at it all the way and dig into the data and so forth, but people are speaking in, they're sharing their voice. In our 2022 survey, and we do it the same time of year, in our 2022 survey, we had an 80.2% participation level. We had 879 individual, confidential, anonymous comments shared. Like, these are examples of the comments, okay? So you go in, and the culture drivers are on a 7-point Likert scale. But then, depending on where you are and how you respond, it knows then when to ask you a question to dig deeper. So that's where the comments come in. So, but when we started in 2019, this culture driver about clued in leaders, and so that you know the way the culture driver statement is worded, it's senior managers understand what is really happening in TNDGS, okay? When we did this, the overall department score was in the 45th percentile in 2019. And that was the highest culture driver score in that first survey. Actually, 6 of the 14 culture drivers were below the 25th percentile. Yeah. So when you talk about, you walk in and this is, whoa, what you're seeing from the people in the organization, yeah. But let me tell you, we've been working since that first survey. And in 2022, responding to the same culture driver, senior managers understand what's really happening, we performed at the 66th percentile. And we had that increased participation rate that I told you about. We had 80.2% participation. And now there's only one culture driver below the 25th percentile. So of all 15. So we're making progress in a lot of areas. One more part I want to chime in on, because this actually, and believe me, I can really geek out about all of this too. So if anyone, I've got my laptop in my room, I can go into the portal, I can show you all kinds of stuff. But if anyone wants to talk later. But to give you another example of a culture driver within the organization and what we need to tune into when we know there needs to be change. Well, that's about what the employees understand. Do they feel informed? And so this statement, I feel well informed about important decisions at TNDGS, is about include in employees. Well, let me tell you, you can see these comments. This is what they were saying in 2019 versus what they're saying in 2022, okay? Let me tell you about the numbers. In that feeling clued in culture driver statement in 2019, it was at the 12th percentile. Now, just a few years later, the 91st percentile. It is our highest, and we've come a long way, a lot, but it is our highest culture driver from 12th to 91st just in a few years. Change does not have to be scary, okay? But there were things that we needed to do so that we got a different response, and it goes back to just what Coach said. It doesn't matter what you say, or it doesn't matter what you've done before you got there. You have to let them know you care. Help them see change that mindset. You have to start with the mindset. If you want those different results, we've got to start with the mindset. So let's try something, okay? And if y'all want to stand up and stretch, you're welcome to join me, but you can do it sitting as well. Okay, everyone just put your hands out, all right? We're not going to do exercises, but you can tell yourself it'll help you feel better. But start with your hands out, okay? And as I count to 3, after I count to 3, what I want everyone to do is just clasp your hands together in front of you. So, a clasp is, putting the fingers and stuff. So just clasp them, okay? 1, 2, 3. Now hold your clasp. All right, everyone look. Look at your thumbs. Is your right thumb over your left thumb? Your left thumb over your right thumb? Okay, pay attention. Are we different at the tables, maybe? It's okay, we're all different, right? All right, let's do it again, okay? Just do it again. All right, on the count of 3, we're going to clasp again. 1, 2, 3. What are your results? Are they the same? My goodness! Do you have the right thumb or the left thumb? It's the exact same. Okay, you're aware of that now, right? Awareness. All right. I'm going to tell you a little something before we do this again. Tony Robbins, I'm also a fan of Tony Robbins, he says, and I have to qualify it, I didn't come up with this, but he says that if the right thumb is over the left thumb, you're more creative type. If the left thumb is over the right thumb, you're very intelligent. So I'm really curious. Did you learn some things about your colleagues? So I'm really, really curious. Does anyone have 2 thumbs in line? Did anyone have this, where the thumbs were not over top, they were in line? You are romantic. The most romantic person in the room. All right. But that's what they say. Okay, so now we have awareness about what our thumbs mean, right? Okay, let's do it one more time. But this time, when I count to 3, all right, make something different happen. Change the thumbs. Think about it, okay? So this time, when I count to 3, you're going to do something different. 1, 2, 3. Okay, what does that feel like? Yuck. Feels different? Awkward? You had to work at it. Like, I do this often. I like, that didn't. And by the way, my right goes over my left naturally. So, yeah, it didn't feel right. But you had to be intentional. Did we maybe have to slow down a little bit? We had to tell our mind, hey, look, we're going to change that thumb, didn't we? You had to think about it. Okay, so change happens. We can be a part of the change, but it has to start with our mindset. We have to tell each other, start with telling ourselves. But when we're, as leaders, talking about it, we can't talk about all the things that are wrong. We can't talk about all the unknowns. We can't say things that are going to help us have different results if it's just going to pull us deeper into that mindset of, this can't be done, this is ridiculous. I mean, how many different excuses do we hear either ourselves or our colleagues say? I'm too old for change. How many people have people in the state that, I've been here 30-something years. We've done it this way, right? This is the way. We don't have time for change. Is that another excuse? It's too much work. Who has time to deal with all of that really needs to be changed? Okay, we've got to get rid of that mindset. We've got to do something different. We've got to think something differently. And then really, unless you've had some sort of trauma or drama in your life, humans just have a hard time with change. It's just the way we are, okay? We're all intelligent and creative in this room, but we can change. We can do it. That's just one simple example. But as humans, we are habit-forming creatures. And you know what about this brain? Is it's only 2% of our body mass, but our brain uses 20% of our body's energy every single day. So in order to conserve energy, what do? We form habits. We get into this is just the way we're going to do it because we don't have to slow down. We don't have to think as much, right? Well, if we want to drive change and we want different results, new, improved results, we must begin with changing the mindset, and it has to begin with us as the leaders. So, and I want to tell y'all this story, but because I've added some things in based upon yesterday, I'll have to share this inspiring story between football later today or something. But let me share this quick thing. So the change, we just have to remember the mindset, okay? Behavior comes from within, and it begins with mindset. But if we want those different results as leaders, this stat from a different study, a different company than Deloitte, but this came out earlier this year, that those that are successful, 70% were successful when leaders ensured that staff felt a sense of ownership in the change. Of ownership. So, going back to the story I shared at the beginning about what was the football coach. That coach, the first thing he did is he had a meeting with the players. The players. And what did he say? I want to help you feel better about this change. This change was put on them. What did he say? He asked questions. What do you need? What do you want as a team? We have to listen. We have to ask those questions. And I've talked some about the survey, but a survey can only be the start. What you do next with that survey, and it can be a great start. It was a great start for us to know where to start on the change. But what you do with that start is what, and I'll tell you on the first thing I did personally, Commissioner and I spent a lot of time talking, and we reread everything like so many times. But the first thing I did is in March of 2019, I did a listening tour across the department. And in 2 months, and let me tell you how I did this listening tour. People needed to be heard, but they needed connection. I sat down with 60 of our 350-something employees, okay? We sat down, we had one-on-ones. Now, in advance of that one-on-one, I gave everyone 3 questions. So they had a chance to prepare. It didn't need to be a scary situation. And, but what happened in the one-on-ones was connection. Because, and let me also tell you, these 60 people, they were at every level of the organization. I met with the people on the 3rd shift. Well, I had a one-on-one when I say, I had a one-on-one 3rd shift. I had a one-on-one with a mail delivery team member. I had a one-on-one from, with a procurement team lead, with a lease broker. Different levels of the organization. The people in the garage that fix the vehicles from Bob's team. one-on-ones, okay? That time, sometimes it would turn into more than an hour, sometimes it was half an hour, but they were being heard. And there was connection. One of the first things I did when we sat down is I did not want to assume, because I was the new person, that they really understood what we were doing here. And I'll tell you, people said, we've never had anyone do a listening tour. I actually even had some executive leadership team members say, and Commissioner asked me, she goes, explain what you're going to do. So I did that one time in an ELT meeting, because they hear listening tour, she's going to go around and decide who she's going to get rid of, right? That's what was going on beginning. No, that's not what a listening tour is. But when I sat down, in order to start that connection, I went ahead and told them, I wanted to assure them that I was there because I care, that I was there because I want to learn from them, that I was there because I wanted them to have a voice. I wanted them to weigh into what their expectations were. And I also ensured them that it was going to remain confidential. So that was a test, because they were sure, they were certain that there's no way this person is actually not going to go out of this room and repeat everything I just said, right? But what happened is I started that connection, and following each tour stop, okay, this may sound really old school, I wrote a thank you note. Yes, I wrote a little handwritten, just a little thank you note. Do you know what started happening over those 2 months? People were proud of their thank you note. They were posting them on I am not kidding. Like if they were closed door offices, they would have it on a bulletin board. If it was an open space area, you would see it like propped up on the desk, okay? And it became a story because people on their team would ask them, because that's how they knew. There wasn't like some list put out, everyone I was talking to. That's how they knew. And they started talking amongst themselves. Well, connection. Then I began referring to all these new people I was working with as a team member, as a coworker. Like I would see them somewhere. I'd go down to the production floor in the building and I would call them by name and I would talk to them because I learned a little something about them when I spent time with them. Connection. Listening is important, and we know that as leaders, but connection is how you help get to the next point, the next level. Commissioner began spending time with them. And y'all, I'm talking, we would put people together from the front line in a room, close the door with the commissioner. Like, who had done that before? Before we got there, no kidding, people were scared to walk into the suite, the C-suite. No lie. That was actually, I can go back and show you, it was several of the comments that we got in that first survey. They began hearing directly from her, not from Department of the communications team, or not in a newsletter, but she was speaking into them. We started spending time with people. We went down to vehicle asset management that's in another part of Nashville, spent time with them. I started every few weeks, I would spend half a day down there with them instead of the rest of us are in a building down by the Capitol. But we just wanted to open the door for employees to own these problems, to unleash their potential, and to be part of the solution. We know that empowered employees have the knowledge and the confidence to make decisions. And the power of teams comes from the ability to connect people with each other when they are able to unleash their potential and all their collected capabilities. Culture belongs to everyone. If it needs to be a change, the culture or the reason for whatever that change is, it needs to be owned by everyone, and we realized we needed everyone in DGS to own it, to realize that yes, to change their mindset, that this was not going to be another flavor of the month, that this was real, and they could be a part of it and make a difference. So part of changing that mindset and inspiring people, listening, connecting, but it's also focusing on the possible, okay? When we got there, we kept being told of what we can't do or what didn't work. Do y'all work with people like that sometimes? Yeah. So we have to inspire others to focus on the possible. Again, changing that mindset. Leaders, it needs every level of the organization. Leaders, individual team members need to focus on the possible and stop being so critical. So this just gives you a few examples of just some recent awards and recognitions, but every time we achieved something, we celebrated together. And we didn't assume that everyone else in the organization knew. Again, to change that mindset, focusing on the possible, you have to show them that this is real, that this can happen. So leaders, we can't dictate, okay? We have to share information, all right? Sometimes that sharing information means we need to provide clarity. We also, as leaders, if we're going to focus on the possible, then let's not settle. We should be searching for opportunities where we can bring about the change and let others be a part of it. And the third thing is, if we're going to focus on the possible, we can't ignore, okay? We're going to have some difficult challenges. And I heard this yesterday. It's really hard on an organization when some leaders don't deal with some tough things that need to be dealt with. They kind of just would rather not see it or recognize it. It gets ignored. Well, not only can we not ignore, but we have to invite others to be a part of it and to participate in this. McKinsey had a stat earlier this year in one of their reports that 54% of the employees that are leaving their organization are doing so, and this was a top reason, okay, are doing so because they're not feeling valued by the organization. So if they're going to feel valued, we need to help them see what is possible. Help them change that mindset and stop ignoring and stop settling and stop dictating and making excuses. So this is a Deloitte slide. So I thought that this was really interesting because as leaders, you know, and if we're going to inspire, we're talking about listening, connecting, sharing ownership, but we're also talking about seeking to understand. And seeking to understand is different than listening, okay? And what we heard Coach say, that part of how he built credibility is because his players recognized that he got them. He understood what it was like to be a player. I keep feeling like I'm going to lose this. So I'm not, it's like, it's just hanging on a sash. But understanding. And so we have this change going on among all of our workforce. And I thought what was significant about this that Deloitte put out earlier this year, it's one of their insights in 2022, was the shift in what is most valuable to our employees. And what also really, this workers now, U.S. adults, have cited that career as a source of meaning has declined since 2017 from 24% to 17%. And this shift, this is the source of meaning in people's life. So if we're seeking to understand, we need to understand that this is important to our team. Actually, this was a Gallup poll earlier this year. This was amazing to me. The top three wants across every generation in the workforce. Here it is, an organization that cares about employees' well-being. Every generation in the workforce, we're going back to that word cares. But then it was the number one for both millennials and Gen Zs, by the way, if you have a workforce with a lot. So yesterday, we were talking about, you referenced often about vision statement and vision and so forth. So something that we did in June, so we came in the June of 19, is we gathered, and it was a fourth of our workforce, but every level. We had executive leadership meeting, or executive leaders in the room with literally a print production operator, okay, in the room. And we had every level of the organization represented, as well as all of our different teams across the department represented. And we did this over the course of several weeks. And we said, you know what? The people are going to define what our mission, our vision, and our values are, and define the direction that we want to go. Now, we're going to keep in mind, of course, with the governor's priorities, but let me read to you our vision statement, the Department of General Services at in Tennessee. And this is where we started with that. In 2019, to create a culture of excellence that produces consistent, strategic, and innovative support solutions for state government. Because we keep everyone else operating, right? So much of the time. A culture of excellence. That culture of excellence can be seen and should be seen throughout the organization in all the different things we do. We also established our values, and it makes the acronym TEAM. I know, y'all are like, golly, she's right. But TEAM, the T is for thorough, the E is for engaged, the A is for accountable, and the M is for motivated. And we have different value statements with each of those. But here's the thing is, the department had never had a strategic plan. Like, there was no long-range plan. In fact, part of the governor's intention, Governor Lee, when he came in, is it was really, we learned during transition, departments in government don't really do strategic planning. Now, thanks to the work of the prior governor, and Clifton can tell you about this, they finally, and the governor before us, started actually having some operational KPIs and strategic initiatives focused for the budget year, but not long-range planning. So one of the things the governor did in that first year is he said every department is going to put together a 4-year plan. Well, let me tell you, some people just, well, I probably can't say what some people had a really hard time with that, right, in state government. What does that mean? That just means more paperwork, more meetings. But what we did at the Department of General Services is that we saw, okay, it can't just be a 4-year plan. It has to be, there has to be alignment with everything we do in the organization. So I'm going to walk you through very quickly that aligning piece. Strategy and culture. It has to be together. Leadership is the act of getting individuals and operations aligned and moving in the same direction with the same desired outcome. So alignment is important, actually, not only just for the success of saying, hey, we can accomplish these things, but employees, how they feel about their department is the way often our customers feel about working with us too. And we know that the opposite of alignment is chaos. Yep. Chaos where processes, people get caught up in processes, or people get caught up in, because different things are done different ways by different managers, and different people have access to different resources, and there's just a total lack of common purpose, okay? But this powerful duo, you make that happen, everyone in the organization, yes, you have that mission, that vision, and that values. But look at this. If you can make this powerful duo happen when you're developing a strategic plan, when you're making change happen in your organization, strategy becomes your guiding path. Culture is your driving path. Remember, we started with talking about it's the people that make the change happen. So you've got to, if you're trying to, whether it's a process change or it's something transformational like an entire culture that we've been working on in our department, you have to have that strategy, that guiding path. You saw it in the comments. People know what it is now. They talk about it. But you can't do it if you're not dealing with the values, the practices, and the behaviors. The people are who's driving the change. And if you want those different results, it can't just be strategy. You're not just going to get different results because you've got a new plan. Because what? It's the people that implement the plan. So you've got to have both. So that's really what and just so you know what we've done. So we started on the 4-year plan in 2019. In 2020, in addition to what we were already doing for KPIs at the operational level, we wanted every division, all 5 divisions in the department, to have an operational plan beyond what you measure, okay? A plan it establishes your priority. Everyone in the organization knew why we were doing some things the way we began doing them because they knew the plan. Guess what? Everyone has a copy of the plan, and it's in our internal website where the employees can go look to it, and then that scoreboard thing we're doing at our huddles, they get updated on it. So, and then it rolls down into people's IPPs. So we had all of that ready in place by the time we were starting our 2nd fiscal year, okay? So people began knowing the why, understanding where they were making a difference, and they began actually able to talk about objectives and action items, and it's as you saw. So it is a powerful duo, but you have to make it real and a part of everything else you're doing. I think the first time, Pam, the first time we talked, I was like, I got to talking about this quote, and let me tell you, it is awesome. And Peter Drucker, you study about him in business school, and you follow all of his different works and so forth. By the way, I have no idea what that sign says because I don't have my glasses on. How much time do I have? 0? Oh, goodness gracious. See, she's probably been telling me other things
And I need glasses for, like, when I go to a football game, I have to put my glasses on if I want to see the player's jersey number. But I was like, she's holding something up, but I can't tell what it is. Well, so I'm just going to close with culture eats strategy for breakfast. We've got a new closing, ladies and gentlemen. But forget that other activity. But the strategy focuses on resourcefulness and skillfulness, while culture defines engagement, passion, execution. And so when Peter Drucker said this, culture eats strategy for breakfast, he was pointing to the importance of the human factor in our organizations. And so no matter how detailed your plans are, or how difficult and how much time and different thinking that change may require, the people within the organization need to nurture whatever change that is, need to own it. There needs to be a connection. The human factor is too important to leave out of your strategy if you want different results. Thank you.